So that's about all I have to say to you about comments. Generally, comments take care of themselves, but if you do see any spam, please feel free to come in here and delete it. The last thing that you might conceivably need to do is to modify a table. We use tables for one purpose only here. If we go back out here to the website, practice schedule. This is the practice schedule from last year because we don't currently have a new practice schedule. But the practice schedule is a table, and tables are a tricky thing in website editing. We have a special plugin, what WordPress calls a plugin, for creating and modifying tables. So if you look at the page, if I wanted to edit this page, I might click here on Edit, and what I'd see is a lot of stuff that's hard to read, but the most important thing I'm seeing here at the top is Spring 2003 General Practice Schedule, Table ID 2. And that brackets here, bracket table ID equals 2 / unbracket. This is saying to WordPress, go get table number 2 and insert it into this page. So if I go back to viewing the page, what I see is, here it is, Spring 2003 General Practice Schedule, and here's that table that WordPress went and grabbed, table number 2. So how do I edit table number 2? Well, there are two ways to do it. One way, from over here, I can go to Table Press, look at the list of tables, find table number 2, and start editing it. So that works pretty well. The other option, though, is back on the original page under Practice Schedule, instead of editing the whole page, which is what I clicked earlier, I can also click inside this, right next to the table. This edits just the table. And this brings me to that same page where I'm able to edit the table. And once I'm in here, I can do a number of things. I can change the name of the table. I can change its description. I can change what table ID it has. Generally, you don't want to mess with IDs, so leave the IDs the same, but you may want to change the table's name, and you can change the content of the table in here. And that's about it. Once you're done with making changes to the table, save the changes, and it probably will look good. If you run into trouble, call me. I'll see what I can do. Tables are a little trickier than the other stuff we're doing here, but it is important to be able to modify because, as you can see, the practice schedule is one of the most important things on the website, and it's important this information be easily readable for people. My main advice for you in creating tables is keep these entries small. So when you receive the table from Chantal or from the coaches, there may be a lot of words in here. Try to cut it down to the minimal number of words. St. Anne's, CBC. Try to keep the date, the time as short as possible. And so those are things I've done to try to keep this readable and simple. The directions you'll see here are something that I created some time ago in Google Maps. And this shows people how to get from CRLS out to St. Anne's or from CRLS down to the CBC. They're walking directions that I created using Google Maps. And you can also click here to view a larger map. I created those. If you're curious about how those got created, you can see the code is down here. This is most of the nonsense on this page. Remember, the table is only this. Most of the nonsense on the page is the nonsense that came from Google Maps. So my advice for you is to not touch that, but just leave it alone. But again, if you need to make changes, feel free to play around, and you can always make a copy of this text and create a separate page where you can play around with it, or you can go ahead and play around with it right here. But if you do make a permanent change and we can't get it back, that would be better if we didn't do that. Anyway, that's pretty much it. You'll see this red thing here that's telling me that there was an autosave that was more recent than this version. This is something that WordPress creates to make sure that people's changes don't get lost. So if you're working on WordPress, on a WordPress thing, and then you turn off your computer and you come back, it will generally have saved what you were working on. So I don't think in this case it's something crucial, so I'm just going to ignore that autosave. But that's something that you'll sometimes see on WordPress.